How can hunters tell if a bull moose is legal to harvest? The first step is to become familiar with the regulations and also to look at moose whenever possible. It's not always easy to determine the legality of antler configurations, and even for experienced hunters, it takes research and practice. This video will help explain antler terminology and help hunters identify a variety of moose antler configurations. The various game management units in Alaska have area-specific rules on what constitutes a legal bull moose. Take time to read the regulations, make sure you understand them for the area you are hunting, and study the difference between legal and illegal antlers before heading into the field. Moose are plentiful in some areas of Alaska, but are at low densities in other areas. Hunting pressure also varies, and it's no surprise that pressure tends to be highest along roads and rivers where prime moose hunting areas are most readily accessed. Regardless of where you hunt, it's your responsibility to know the area-specific rules, so only legal animals are harvested. Moose hunting is an important annual activity for many people, and the Alaska Department of Fish and Game works to maintain healthy moose populations and sustainable hunting opportunities. Selective harvest strategies are used in areas where hunting pressure may exceed the number of moose available for harvest.
Selective harvest is very important because it provides a consistent opportunity for people to go hunting and hunt every year for a moose over the period of the hunting season. Selective harvest provides that opportunity so that every generation of Alaskan hunters gets to learn how to grow hunting as a young person and then grow up doing that as they grow older every year.
The main benefits of antler-restricted hunts are that they generally allow greater hunter participation and longer seasons than would otherwise be possible. In this video, we're going to show you what to look for in an antler-restricted harvest area. We'll look at a variety of antlers and define the terms point or tine, spike, fork, brow palm, main palm, antler spread, and 50-inch. Judging a legal bull may seem difficult at first, but with a little practice, you will be better able to judge legal bulls and also know when you don't have enough information to legally or ethically take the shot. Before hunting in an antler-restricted area, hunters should take time to study a variety of antler configurations. In some places in Alaska, regulations restrict the harvest of bull moose to a specific antler size or configuration. Make sure you understand the regulations for the area where you plan to hunt. If you have questions or aren't sure how to read the regulations booklet, contact your local Fish and Game or Alaska Wildlife Trooper office. They are willing and able to help you and appreciate your efforts to comply with the regulations by harvesting only legal animals. Before hunting, it also helps to take some time to learn a bit about moose biology. Let's start by discussing how antlers grow.
In late fall, the male calves will have some antler growth. It's just the base from which, future antlers will grow from. It doesn't ever develop into a full antler. Some people refer to it as a pedicle or a knob. It's just a fuzzy growth where the antler will be as an adult. It's about the size of a kiwi fruit.
Calf bulls are not legal under the antler-restricted selective harvest strategy. While antler growth depends largely on nutrition and genetics, each year the cycle is the same. Antlers begin to grow in the spring under velvet, a layer of very sensitive skin, supplied by a network of blood vessels delivering nutrients essential to antler growth. By late August, a change in daylight length and hormones signals the end of the velvet phase. The velvet is shed, and bulls rub their antlers against trees and shrubs to help the process. Between mid-November and late March, moose drop their antlers. Each year, a bull moose will grow larger and more complex antlers until it reaches old age, at which point antler size will begin to decline.
Today I've got with me the skull and antlers from one of the bulls that lived here from 1983 to 1997. His name was Bando, and when he died, his antlers weren't as large as they were when he was younger, but he does provide us with an example of a bull that would be legal by width definition. He was 57 inches wide, but out front, the number of brow points in this 4 brow point restricted harvest area are only 1 on the right side and 2 on the left.
In most parts of Alaska, it takes 4 or 5 years for a bull's antlers to reach 50 inches across. The purpose of antlers is to intimidate other male moose and attract mates during the fall breeding season. Let's take a closer look at some antlers so we understand the various parts and terminology. This portion of the antler that grows closest to the skull is known as the base and is attached to the pedicle. A young bull may have a spike antler like this, meaning it has 1 point, also called a tine. A tine or a point is defined as a projection that's at least 1 inch long and longer than it is wide, when measured 1 inch or more from the tip. A bull with a forked antler has 2 points. While there are regional differences, some yearling bull moose have at least 1 spiked or forked antler, making them legal for harvest in areas restricted to spike-only or spike-fork rules. The remaining yearling bulls are generally not legal under this selective strategy and may remain in the population in future years. Here is a set of larger antlers. The part that grows out from the base is called the main beam. There is a brow palm, and these are brow tines or points. Depending on where you hunt, legal bulls may be required to have 2, 3, or 4 brow tines on one or both sides. This portion of the antler is referred to as the main palm. For most large bulls, the main palm is separated from the brow palm by a distinctive large bay. While the bay is obvious on many antlers, sometimes it is not clear, and that is when you should exercise caution, since differentiating the brow palm and brow tines will be a greater challenge. The main palm typically has points or tines too, but the brow tines, those points that originate from the brow palm, are what count for determining whether an older bull is legal under brow tine restrictions. When trying to judge brow tines, make sure to get a good view from the front or from multiple angles. Sometimes moose will grow a point like this in the large bay between the brow palm and the main palm. This is known as a mid-bay tine and is not a brow tine. Be careful not to confuse a mid-bay tine with a brow tine. You may be able to differentiate a brow tine from a mid-bay tine by looking closely at the angle that the tine leaves the palm. Brow tines usually are on one plane, while mid-bay or main palm tines are on another. Outside of counting brow tines, the other way to determine whether a larger bull is legal is to estimate its antler spread, which needs to measure at least 50 inches across. This method takes a lot of practice and experience. We'll demonstrate the proper technique for measuring a 50-inch spread in the next section. One thing to realize is that antlers are not symmetrical from one side to the other, and in some regions of Alaska, particularly in Southeast, unusual antlers are common. This can make judging a legal antler particularly challenging, so take time before you shoot. Keep in mind that not all antlers fit neatly into legal or illegal categories, and in some cases, the hunter should pass on the moose and look for another animal. Always remember, if you're not absolutely certain a bull is legal, don't shoot. Now, let's talk about what to look for on bulls you'll encounter in the field. Let's first examine younger or smaller bulls with small antlers, often spikes or forks, and discuss what it would take to make one of these animals legal. Young bulls in their second year of life, also called yearling bulls, may have one or a combination of the following antler configurations: a spike, or 1 point, a fork, which consists of 2 points, 3 or more points, or small palmated antlers, also called paddles. In some areas, a young bull must have an antler with a spike on at least one side to be legal. In other areas, a legal bull must have antlers with either a spike or a fork on one side. If the antler has 1 point, a spike, on at least one side, it is legal in areas with a spike restriction. As long as at least one antler is legally configured, it does not matter what antler configuration is on the other side of the head. If the antler has 2 points, also called a fork, on at least one side, it is a legal bull in areas with a fork restriction. Make sure you are counting all points. Always wait until the bull turns so that you can see all sides of the antler to see if there's a small point between the 2 main points or somewhere else on the antler. If a third point is present that is at least 1 inch long and longer than it is wide, the bull is not a fork. If you were hunting in a spike fork area, this would not be a legal bull. Many factors can affect antler configurations and create irregularities, including injury to the antler during the growth phase, diet, environment, genetics, and the general health of the animal. Take your time to correctly identify spikes and forks. Again, a tine or point is defined as a projection that is at least 1 inch long and is longer than it is wide. Now let's look at some typical antler configurations of legal medium to large bulls. We'll discuss some ways to judge 50-inch antler spreads and identify bulls with 2, 3, or 4 brow tines. When you come across a larger bull in the field, like this one, the first order of business is to count the brow tines. Remember, brow tines are points that originate from the brow palm, which is separated from the main palm by a distinct bay. Some brow tines extend straight forward, while others curve upwards. Before hunting, make sure you know how many brow tines are required for the area you are hunting to determine if the bull is legal. Must it have 2, 3, or 4 brow tines on one side or both? Always check the regulations. Here is an example of a 2x3 brow tine bull. It has 2 brow tines on its left antler and 3 brow tines on its right antler. This bull would be legal in areas where harvest is limited to bulls with 2 brow tines on both sides or 3 brow tines on at least one side. Notice how easy it is to count the brow tines on this animal because of the wide bay that allows the hunter to accurately identify the brow palm and therefore the brow tines. This is not always the case. To accurately identify and count brow tines, bulls are best viewed from the front in addition to other angles. Viewing a bull from the side runs the risk of counting the main palm points as brow tines. Be careful not to count a point that extends between the brow palm and the main palm. This is called a mid-bay or mid-antler tine. Mid-bay points like this one cannot be counted as a brow tine. Again, always watch the animal until you are certain it has the required number of brow tines. A good pair of optics will aid you considerably in counting brow tines. Make sure you see it from multiple angles to be sure you're counting the tines correctly. If you're not sure, don't shoot. If the bull does not have the required number of brow tines, it is still legal if its antler spread is at least 50 inches. So let's discuss the 50-inch or wider antler spread requirement. By definition, 50-inch antlers mean the antlers span 50 inches or more when measured in a straight line perpendicular to the center line of the skull from the outermost points of each antler. When judging antler spread in the field, be sure not to estimate diagonally across the antlers. Judging the width of antlers is usually more difficult than counting points or tines. So let's talk about some clues that may help you estimate whether antlers are 50 inches or wider. One way to estimate antler spread in the field is by looking at skull width. Although there is some variation, on average, the distance between the eyes of a bull moose is approximately 9 to 10 inches. Starting where the antler originates from the skull, if you have more than 2 times the width of the head on each side of the moose, its antlers will be close to 50 inches. But be careful, the difference between a 48-inch bull moose and a 52-inch bull moose is difficult to tell, so be prepared to let these too close to call moose walk away. Another guideline to note is that larger bulls generally have longer main beams extending from the head before the antlers start to palmate. Take note of these clues, but realize that they don't necessarily mean the antlers are over 50 inches. Judging 50 inches takes practice. If you are not sure about the antlers being over 50 inches, look for brow tines. Hunt in some of the any bull hunts or hunt with a partner who has lots of experience evaluating antler spread. In the field, take your time to ensure a clear evaluation of the bull's antlers. And again, if you can't be absolutely sure the animal is legal, don't shoot. While it might seem easy to tell a cow moose from a bull, that's not always the case, particularly in cover or in low light. Often, moose browse with their heads down and in groups. If possible, try to view the animal from the rear. Does it have a whitish patch near the tail? If yes, then that's a telltale sign it's a female. If the patch, called a vulva patch, is absent, keep watching. It might be a young bull. If antlers are present, continue looking to determine antler shape. Sometimes a light-colored hair edge or leading edge surrounding the darker-colored ear of a cow moose can be mistaken for spike antler. This is especially true when viewed in dim light or from long distances. View the animal from many angles to be sure of what you're seeing. Ears can move and change angles on the head when the moose is still. Antlers cannot. To effectively evaluate antlers, it helps to take a systematic approach. First, ask yourself, is it a small bull or a large bull? If it's a small bull, does it have 1 point, a spike, or 2 points, a fork on either side? That would make it a legal young bull in an area with a spike or fork harvest requirement. If you're not sure, don't shoot. If it's a large bull, look for the large bay and identify the brow palm. Only then can you begin to confidently count the brow tines. If it has the minimum number of brow tines on one or both sides, it's legal. If not, ask yourself, is it over 50 inches wide? If it is, and 50-inch antlers are legal in the area you are hunting, it's a legal bull. If you're not sure, again, don't shoot. Remember to take the time to become familiar with the regulations in the area you intend to hunt. We recommend new hunters hunt with a more experienced partner. Also note that in areas with antler restrictions, antlers must be brought out of the field. Both antlers must remain naturally attached to the unbroken or uncut skull. It is illegal to alter antlers in any way, and sealing may also be required. In some areas where moose research is being conducted, hunters may be required to bring the antlers or other biological specimens to a fish and game office or to a check station so that data can be collected. Also, remember the antlers are required to be brought out from the field last, after or with the last load of meat. Check the regulation book for any special restrictions or conditions in your area. Time you can spend preparing before your hunt is time well spent. Practice makes perfect when it comes to determining what constitutes a legal bull. You can never call a shot back, so in the field, avoid quick decisions and take your time evaluating the safety of the shot and the legality of the animal you are looking at. Let the moose move around and move its head so you can see the animal from a variety of angles. Be sure you know what you're shooting at. If there are multiple moose in the area, make sure that you are shooting the correct one. It is your responsibility to determine whether you are shooting a legal moose, so if you're unsure, don't shoot. Good quality optics such as binoculars and spotting scopes are critical. Take the time to practice with any new equipment so you understand how the magnification and range work. Follow good hunting practices. Clearly identify your target before you shoot. Sometimes the animal you were judging from afar is not the same animal you sneak up on for a clear shot. Bulls are often found in groups of 2 or more during hunting season. Take a second look before you shoot. It's worth taking your time. You don't want to make a mistake and take an illegal bull. If you do, you will lose your harvested animal and could face a fine. If you do make a mistake and kill an illegal animal, call the Alaska Wildlife Troopers immediately and explain your situation. Then salvage the meat. Typically, hunters who turn themselves in are treated with more leniency. Honesty is the best policy and will keep hunting opportunities intact for future generations of hunters. In summary, remember that not all antlers fit neatly into legal or illegal categories, and it is up to you, the hunter, to pass on questionable animals and look for another moose. Remember, with a little bit of practice and patience, you can become comfortable in determining a legal bull.